next up we have Mike Hann, as you can see. He is the Executive Vice President of Revenue at Fabric. I'm looking forward to this. When he told me what he was going to be talking about earlier in the week, I genuinely, nearly fell off my chair. So his title is Scaling Through Series ABC Easy as 1, 2, 3. Very good title. This is the bit I can't believe. Having achieved Series A, Series B and Series C's funding in the last 13 months. Mike will be walking us through some of his key tips. So if you plan to raise Series A, B and C in the next 13 months, you're in the right place. Mike joined Fabric in his current role in February of 2021. Before this, he made the Forbes 30 under 30 list in the retail and e-commerce category, while growing Pop and App Commerce Company. And previously, he was the e-commerce consultant at Channel Advisor and the head of e-commerce at Xerox as well. So Mike, do you want to head on up to the stage? Ready for your 7 minutes? Welcome back to the stage.
Thanks for taking the good microphones, guys. Appreciate it. So yeah, great to be here. I've hoped to speak at Sales Conference for quite some time, but it's amazing to be back in a room with so many people. So I'm going to take you through some of the learnings that I've had, some of the mistakes I've made. I'm continuing the Jackson 5 theme and doing 5 tips or 5 mistakes that I've made. Some of them shouldn't be new, but should be good reminders to you, and hopefully you can take something as you scale your current company. So just to level set with kind of a bit of context, so we've raised just shy of 300 million in the last 13 months and added about 300 employees, backed by Silicon Valley investors. So it's been like a crazy growth story. Company's valued at $1.5 billion today. So hopefully there's a lot of learnings from that. And a quick disclaimer, because we're now a Series C company, these views are mine and are not Fabric's views or experiences. So let's dive straight into this. So tip number 1 is really to act stage appropriate. So what I mean by this is my role personally and my team's roles were very different at Series A, Series B, Series C. And I think a lot of times you might start a new role or join a new company, and you might think you want to behave in a certain way based on where you were or what you think you're capable of. And a good example is I spent 8 years scaling a company before I joined Fabric. I thought I knew everything. I thought I was coming in to be like, a board level executive and spend all of my time on strategy. And I got a very rude awakening that, we're very hands-on. I had 1 AE and 1 SDR when I joined the company last February. So I think the big learning from me there is just make sure you are in the weeds if you need to be, and take your executive team, whoever you report to, whether that's the CEO or somebody else, take them on that journey with you. And one thing I'd strongly recommend is aligning your comp with the goals of the company. So I think the challenge a lot of us have is a lot of us have a great options package, and we're bought into this SaaS journey of VC backed and my options will be worth a fortune in the future. It takes us 4 years on average to get these options, but the average tenure for a sales leader in SaaS is 17 months. So the economics don't make sense. So I think play that to your advantage, and if you align with your leader on what you need to do at A, B or C, or this year, next year, align heavy comp with hitting those KPIs versus just aligning on your options or your typical OTE. That was tip 1. Tip 2, get mentors. So this is somewhat contradictory to the previous point, but I think this is and I was speaking to Andy about this earlier, it's almost like spotting what's around the corner. So if you are in the moment and living as a Series A sales leader or a Series C sales leader, how can you have a mentor who's a stage or 2 ahead of you so you know what you're getting into? So for me now, this is new territory for me in terms of raising 300 million, racing towards IPO at breakneck speed. So I'm trying to now connect with other revenue leaders at pre-IPO companies and work on what's coming for me. What are these things going to be that are going to slap me in the face very soon? So even if I don't work on them straight away, I know what to expect and I know when I'm under pressure to pivot in that direction. So that's the kind of formal side of the mentorship. The informal side of the mentorship, and I'd really recommend this one, and this is such a great event to do it at, is to get a group of 3 or 4 people and start up a forum. So I have this with 3 other SaaS execs, and we speak every couple of weeks, and it's like a safe place to talk about all the shit that goes wrong in your organization. So you talk about, I've got no idea how to do a comp plan for, such and such situation. We've just acquired the company. I've got no idea how to bring on an acquisition. You might want to talk about firing someone or hiring someone. Anything like that, I think it's great to have a network there, because what you don't want to do necessarily is go to your board or your manager with some of these really challenging problems, especially when it's such a challenging world that we all live in, where, as I said, it's 17 months average tenure. So find a safe space, and tonight is a great format to meet some folks. Third tip, always be hiring. I don't know how I still don't know this. I've spent the last 12 years in SaaS, but I'm going to say it because everyone needs reminding on it. We done that classic thing of like, every time you raise, you turn on the hiring tabs, then you kind of turn them off a little bit. I think everybody needs to be in this constant mode of hiring, and my big advice would be to be really strict on criteria. So don't interview lots of people at all times, but just get super, super strict on the criteria. So for us, we've just hired like a ton of SDRs. We want to turn down the volume on that, but we still want to hire great candidates. So we've got our strictest criteria out to our select number of partners, and we can then just hire for diverse candidates. So that was really hard in another world where we would like onboard loads of people and then turn it off and then on again, because guess what, we suddenly had 10 young, white, 20-year-olds join us, and we can't build a diverse team there. And then when you turn it off, it's really hard to build a high-performance culture, because you haven't got enough sales capacity to then swap in and out reps as they perform or not perform. And then the last point on this, and this is like a new learning for me, is I would often think like I've hired an amazing VP, and that person's going to take away all of this shit for me. So like, I won't get specific, but like we hired a role where I thought they could scale for the next couple of years and be like, one of my right-hand people. And that person, within a matter of 6 months, couldn't scale because of the rate our company's growing. And then it's just a challenge to then like try and find a new person, and you kind of lose 6 months there. So just always be hiring, and I've learned that time and time again. Number 4 is to build foundations really early. So if you have like some technology, for example, and it's not working for you, and you think, I'll replace that next year. And Tom mentioned earlier about like Salesforce, for example. That's a great one. I spoke to a CRO the other day who was running a similar stage company to us, and for him to move from HubSpot to Salesforce, he thinks it's an 18-month project to do that. And I think that's the kind of almost like technical debt you build up. And for us as sales leaders, sometimes you don't think of your job as like a project manager or like a mini CIO, but like we have to manage these toolkits and these like SaaS providers. So I think just think of it a little bit like you're a mini CIO within your sales toolkit. And if the tech's not going to scale, rip it out early and build the foundations that you need. So that was a big learning for us. We ripped out HubSpot really early, replaced it in 2 weeks. We put in a ton of tech and built out processes and expectations of how to use it really quickly. And that's been really effective for us. And then it gets scary. Like we've now got like 12 different SaaS tools that we use, and then you suddenly need to hire someone to manage the tech you bought. So great problems to have. And then my final tip is to record everything. So I couldn't vouch enough for technologies like Jiminy and call recording software, because it's just going to enable you to scale that much easier as time goes on. One of the interesting things with like the journey that we've been on through A to C is in our early days, I was on the front line selling with the team. My CEO, my founder, was on the front line selling with the team. Then all of a sudden, it's your VPs. Then all of a sudden, the AEs are on their own with a sales engineer. And it's just like, that is so hard to go from the motion of founder-led sales and CEO-led sales through to a brand new AE trying to learn your product that, by the way, is not documented, has shitty sales enablement, has shitty onboarding experience. So really invest early in documenting everything, and nobody's going to be as good as your CEO or your founder at selling the product. So like, take some of these snippets early on and make sure they kind of fall through the organisation as you scale. Because otherwise, your new reps that come in, doesn't matter where their CV, on their background, where they've come from, they're going to fail without having those snippets there. So build that early. And then the final point on recording everything is have a sales playbook that's always editable, and just constantly work with your peers or your sales leadership team on refining that as time goes on. So for us, we have this living and breathing document. It changes every single week. When there's a new process, when there's a new tool, when there's a new way to use Slack or a workflow, we'll put that into one central playbook, and everybody can follow that and adjust. And that's just made scaling so much easier for us. And I actually have a couple of slides in that deck. There's like my expectations of like what I expect from you, how I expect you should use tools, how I expect you should coach, etc. So we just try and be really transparent on what that is and flow that through the org. So that was my 7 minutes, 5 tips. So act stage appropriate, get mentors, always be hiring, build early foundations, and record everything. Was I on time? Yeah. Near enough. Oh, close.